guys, today I scrapbooked this layout using Pinterest as an inspiration. This is a pin that Katie sent me. Katie Rose is on the design team at Scraptastic, and we're doing the blog post for today, which is Pinterest Monday, and she sent me this pin and I really loved it. And I do have a difficult time being inspired with Pinterest other than pardon me, other than the colors, and so I was really trying to use Pinterest as an inspiration for design in this case. So I really loved that quilt, and so I'm looking through the scraps that I have left from the Summer Nights kit. I am doing this a little bit ahead of time because I'm going to be on vacation when this blog post goes live. So I am still using the Summer Nights kit, which was the kit from July. And I'm just looking for, I wanted it to be bands of color the way that it was in the quilt that the inspiration came from, but it doesn't look like I have any single colors, like enough of any colors of patterns. So I'm going to just pick out some patterns and try to put them together in more of a random way than how the quilt looks, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm just going to have a look at some of the patterns that do come in the kit. I'm just having a look at these cards first just to make sure that there's nothing I could use there. And then I have these two pieces of pattern paper that are already cut into strips, and I've got lots of little bits here, and so I can easily cut these into strips. And now I'm looking at this cut apart sheet from Simple Stories from the Good Day Sunshine collection that I'm thinking I might be able to get a couple of small strips out of as well. My strips are going to be 1 inch in width, and I'm going to use my trimmer here to cut a bunch of patterns into 1 inch strips. I'm not paying much attention at all to the length of them because some of them I will keep long and some of them I'll trim down to little small ones. And so I have some paper from Bella Boulevard, some paper from Simple Stories, and some paper from American Crafts from the hashtag Sunshine collection. And I'm cutting this both crosswise, and I'm also going to use some of the longer pieces, the longer solids from that pattern paper. And now this one is I'm using the polka dots on the other side of this. So I'm trying to pick all light papers with more of a white base. I'm not picking any papers that have the wood grain in them. And I'm not entirely sure what color I'm going to use for my background, but I'm just going to use this piece of peach paper just because I need something that's 12 by 12 so that I know how to lay out my strips, and I'll just change it later. And that peach paper came in the kit. So all of these scraps are pieces of paper that came from the kit, and this is piecing together in a very busy kind of a way. And already I'm starting to get a sense of the fact that I'm not really going to like this, but I'm going to just kind of see it through and make sure that it's not something that looks better as it comes together, right? Because sometimes when you have just a little bit of something, it doesn't look so great, but then once you kind of get more of it, it looks better from a distance. So I'm just making a couple of little adjustments there to see if I can make this into something that I'm going to like, taking a picture so that I know where these pieces are. And at this point I'm not too sure whether I'm going to have everything butt up against one another so that there's no space between my strips, or if there will be a bit of space, because in the inspiration piece, which is the quilt, there is no space between the columns. And so yeah, I went to my stash thinking that I might want gray and white, but then I thought I had pulled out, I think I was off camera when I pulled out the gray and the cream pieces of cardstock. I had pulled those out because those are the background colors from the inspiration piece, so I thought I would kind of use that. So there I am, just checking it again, and I'm showing you that it really doesn't look at all the same. And that's okay. It's not like I was trying to replicate it exactly, but it's also, not only is it not looking the same, but it's not looking like anything I like. So I'm going to hold off on deciding to terminate this plan for a little bit longer just to see if it pans out. So I'm taking all those off, and off camera, I cut my gray paper down to 6 by 12. Ooh, it looks like I've got pretty crazy hair. I got up quite early in the morning to do this layout. So now I am just taking a tiny little edge off of that because that cream paper looked like it was a little bit bigger than the gray. So I'm starting in the middle with my longest pieces. That's how it is in the inspiration piece as well. So I'm just having a look at how this piece looks size-wise and so on. And now I'm just going to, for a moment, check and see whether I might actually have enough colored pieces to do the columns in colors the way that I had originally wanted to do. And so, you know, I'm midway into the plan when I'm deciding to change. So I'm very tentatively, I'm not taking apart the patterns that I had already set up. They're still over to the left and over to the right, but I'm just taking a look at whether I can trim down enough long strips of colors that I can make it look like kind of bands of color across the page. So I definitely have enough variety in the pinks here, but I'm not sure that is the color that I have the most different patterns in. So I'm not sure if I have enough in the other colors. So here I'm just gathering up all of the yellows. A lot of these are similar yellows, like it's the same paper. And so I don't really have a whole lot of variety there, but I do have enough yellow strips. And I don't know exactly how many columns I'm going to need of each color. I don't know how many colors I'm going to end up with. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it for now. So now I'm pulling out all the blues. I don't have a ton of blues, and I really have very, very few greens. So I'm thinking maybe I can take some of these multicolored white-based patterned paper strips and turn them into a colored pattern paper strip by misting them. And then I thought maybe I can cut off select pieces of these cut aparts so that I'm selectively cutting the parts that are the colors that I'm lacking. So I'm going to start by cutting the blue off of this. And then that one looks awfully orange, like there's a lot of orange where the fair ride is. So I'm going to cut that as a potential pattern. It's a little busy and it's not all that orange, but I might use it. And now here I'm thinking I could grab a piece of these balloons and maybe even another piece of these balloons for a red dominant piece. And now these strips make perfect strips. So I'm going to cut those apart as well. And I'm leaving a little bit of the other color on some of these papers just because it doesn't have to be entirely green and blue and you know, the solid color. More blue. I love that sky print, so I'm cutting some blue strips out of that. And now I have these little piles, these little color piles of strips. And so I'm selectively taking more of the orangey pieces and putting them in the orange pile. And I just grabbed the sand from one of the cut aparts and put that in my orange pile as well. And now I'm going to take those two yellow pieces and I think I'm going to turn them orange. I'm just selecting my mists here by looking at my sample, and that one is sunrise, and then the red one I'm picking is going to be overdue. And now I need a green. The sunrise and sunset are both very similar, and one is more, I think it's going to look more red. So I have estate green, overdue, and sunshine. Now here the sunshine looks yellow, but it actually sprays a little bit more of an orangey color, and I'm going to end up adding a little bit of the sunrise color as well because it's once it dries, it's orangey. It's kind of an orangey yellow now. And so I'm going to let that dry just to see if it changes color as it dries, but it's still a little bit too yellow for me. Now, this green looks awesome. I love, love, love this green. And I'm not making them solid because I kind of like how it looks misted with the variability and how much coverage there is. I'm going to go back and add a bit more to this red just because I do really like that color of red. And now I thought I was done, but I am going to pull them back out again. I'm just putting them here on this piece of paper to dry and washing my hands a little bit so I don't get mist anywhere, washing my mat, putting those away, and I'm deciding, at this point I'm thinking, wait a minute, I think I'm going to want to make those more. See, they're kind of, I can't tell whether they belong in the yellow pile or in the orange pile. So I thought if I add some of the sunrise is what I'm using now, over top of the yellow, it's definitely going to look a lot more orange as opposed to yellow. And I did stand back quite a bit when I was misting those because I didn't want to get a ton of that bright orange color, because if there's too much of it, it does tend to start looking red, which is not what I wanted. So this is a big, long process. I am, because I had to go back and change my strips, I am almost an hour into this layout at this point, and I'm still just getting started. I still haven't glued anything down. So I'm not sure where I'm at right now, but I guess I was washing my hands a little bit more. And now I'm thinking about taking some of these more plain strips that came in the pattern paper from American Crafts. All of these papers came in the Summer Nights kit. And I'm thinking that I might want to add my own pattern because it's not very patterned. Like, it's got tiny little dots in it and that's it, but you can barely see them from a distance. So I'm just taking my Mama Elephant pigment ink and making a pattern strip there with the feathers. That's from the feather is from the Either Way stamp set that came with it coordinates with the Either Way kit this month. And this stamp is also from that same kit, the Either Way kit. And I'm just stamping love, love, love all over this. And now I'm going to go back and add it so that it looks like it was a larger repeating pattern on a larger piece of paper, just so it doesn't look quite so contrived. The reason I am using pigment ink for this application is that I do want a nice bright color over these pattern papers, and pigment ink tends to sit on top of the paper as opposed to sinking in and becoming more I'm going to say muted. When you use a dye ink, it kind of sucks into the paper and does get more of a muted or almost transparent type of a look. I wanted this to have more of an opaque and crisp and bright look against the pattern paper. So that's why I'm choosing that color was bubblegum and this color was called lollipop. And those are the inks from Mama Elephant. So I'm just cleaning up my little stamping pad. I will use it again a little bit later. So now I have a nice assortment of pink scraps that are cut into strips that I can choose from. A nice assortment of green and orange and yellow and blue. And so I think I'm ready to start assembling now. So I am going to outline these, and in retrospect, yeah, I guess I'm looking at the layout now, and yes, I'm glad that it's outlined. I was thinking I did end up sewing on this layout, and sewing and outlining is a little bit redundant, but I do like how it looks. The outlining, because I sewed in white, the white doesn't provide a whole lot of contrast, but it does. The stitching gives me some texture on this layout, whereas the outlining, because it's black, it does provide some contrast for these strips. And I'm just outlining the tops and bottoms, and so any strips that are going to be against each other only have outlining on the sides of them. So this middle strip is going to be the longest, and that's why it uses 4 strips. I don't think any of the other ones use 4 strips. The rest either use 3 or 2 strips. So I just zoomed in a little bit so you could see what I'm doing. And I'm going to follow the rainbow here. So after pink, I'm going to do red. And I want the balloon to be up high just because it's kind of like has the feeling like it's in the air. And I'm trying to trim them so that there's almost the same amount above the center line as there is below the center line. And I want the next 2 to be staggered down from the middle so that they're shorter, and then the yellow one will be longer, just to give some interest. I don't want it to look like a pyramid. I want it to look variable. So here are my yellow strips. And next I'm moving on to green. And even though there's a bit of blue on this strip, it's still, I'm counting it as a green. And I positioned it so that the blue was on the side where the blue is going to be next. So I didn't flip it around so that the blue is beside the green, or beside the yellow. And then there's my last tiny little strips in blue. And now I'm going to work my way in the opposite direction using the opposite order. So blue will be next to the pink, and a little bit shorter again than the pink. And then I will take some green and so I'm looking here at the green, and I don't want to put 2 misted pieces together, and I don't like how those 2 look beside each other because it's clear that it's the same paper and it's shifted 90 degrees and it just looks weird. So I didn't want to put those 2 beside each other. So the Summer Nights kit also came with a number of different colors of cardstock, including this really bright cheerful green, and so I'm going to use that as my top strip, and I will do some stamping on it. But for now, I'm still thinking about placement of my strips, so I'm going to go on and continue with that. And then I'll come back to my stamping after. So now I have an orange strip and then the sand from the Simple Stories cutouts. And finally red. And again, the balloons will be on the top, and then that little tiny piece will be in the bottom. And so that's my layout. And I really like this look a lot better than the just random mixed up patterns. It just gives it a little bit more order, and especially the fact that I'm going to be putting a photo and a title on top of these strips. I really don't want them to be too busy. I want them to be predictable so that your eye can focus on what's on the photo. So there's my pattern that I made using more of that Mama Elephant ink, this time in green, with the feather stamp from the Either Way kit. And now I'm using that star, by the way, is from the pocket kit from Scraptastic for July. It's from the This Life Noted kit. And so I'm using some orange ink, and I'm stamping some hearts from the Summer Nights kit. And then I'm going to go back and use the star, but I'm going to use the star with some yellow ink, just for a little bit of variation. So I'm just cleaning up my stamps so I can move on. And now I'm going to start to do my outlining, the rest of my outlining. So this is fairly repetitive. So my apologies for the boringness of this part. So I'm actually using a 5-point micron pen, a 0.05 point micron pen, and I'm going to go ahead and edit out this because it's really just me outlining little strips of paper. It's quite repetitive. So here we go. Now I'm magically on the last one. And I really love how those strips look spread across the paper like that. And so now I need to transfer these strips onto my background piece of paper that I've created using the cream and gray. And I'm going to use the help of my mat here, and I don't want my paper moving around, so I've centered it on my mat. And that way I can use the grid pieces more for the first strip. It really just matters for the first strip. I want the first strip to be in the middle of the page so that I can work out from there. And so you can see there's a heavy line on my grid mat that runs down the center of my mat, and I'm just centering the top on that, and then I glued everything around. Oh my, I do have crazy hair today. I'm sorry, you guys. That's a little crazy for sure. I did actually brush my hair afterwards. My hair is very short, so it actually doesn't usually require any brushing, but sometimes it does that crazy thing when I get out of bed. And so I am, before I glue everything down, I'm just going to figure out the spacing here. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to squish everything up close together, or if I'm going to leave a tiny little narrow bit of the background paper showing between my strips. And that's what I would prefer to do. So I'm just making sure that everything is going to fit if I do that. So yep, it does all fit. So that is good. So I am going to leave the little gray. It's just a tiny little sliver of the background will be showing between each of these columns of color. And I'm just using my ATG to glue these down, and I'm trying to keep it in the middle because I am going to go over this with my sewing machine. It was inspired by a quilt, so I definitely want to add a sewing machine component to this layout. And I'm not entirely sure at this point if I'm just going to go around the outside and then down the center, kind of the horizontal center, or if I'm literally going to sew around each one of these columns, because that is a lot of work and I'm not entirely sure that I'm up to it. It depends on, you know, how I feel when the time comes. So at this point I'm still just thinking about that idea. And that's how, when I do these repetitive tasks in scrapbooking, I usually use it as a chance for me to kind of think about something else that I'm undecided on. So the whole time that I'm gluing this down, I'm kind of thinking about, am I going to sew or not sew? I mean, I know I'm going to sew, but am I going to sew a lot or am I going to sew a little? I'm totally embarrassed at my crazy hair. All right, so almost done. There we go. Now I'm just rubbing off that temporary adhesive from the four corners of my layout so it doesn't inadvertently stick to anything. And through the magic of video, I have sewn. And so this layout took a long time. It took, let me read here, 2 hours and 16 minutes plus sewing time. And I think I spent a good 5 or 10 minutes at my sewing machine. I printed up 2 different pictures of my cat. One is color and one is black and white. I thought with the gray background, I might like a black and white photo, and also with all the colorful backgrounds as well. However, I found that the picture of Maya in black and white was just too cool, and what this does is it kind of brings some cream into the gray, and there's cream and gray on the background, so it kind of balances things out. I think it would have looked a little bit unbalanced, and the cream background paper, like the top of the background, would have looked a little bit odd because there's lots of white on the strips. And then if the photo was also black and white, it just would have made it stand out a little bit, whereas the cream in Maya's fur really makes the background paper look like it belongs there. So I did use dimensional adhesive on this photo just to pop it up from the background a little bit. And I knew right away that I wanted black letter stickers for this layout, just because I need something bold that's going to stand out against all these patterns and colors in the background. And so I knew I wouldn't be using the letters from the kit, so I just went to my stash and picked out these. I love these tall, skinny letters. They're called maple. They're thickers and they're vinyl, and I really, really love them. I thought about putting parentheses, and then I thought I'll put the little squigglies instead. And I did have an extra package of these. There were 2 packs already in my little bag, but there was another pack that was flopping around, so I wanted to include so now I have 3 packs of the same letter stickers in my one bag. And I do have a video on storing thickers in 6 by 12 inch bags, which makes it a lot easier to reach in and take them in and out. So this is a new font, and I didn't write down the name of it, but it is, oh, well, it's new to me. It's probably not new to you guys anymore. But I think it's an Amy Tangerine letter sticker. I'll go find out the title of it. It is a package of thickers called Cal Berteschi, and it is from Amy Tangerine. I've had them for about, 6 months now, or from whenever the release came out in March or whenever. And I really, really love them. I bought 2 packages of them, and they're the type of a font that I could see me using over and over and over again. So I might go scoping the internet and try to pick up a couple more packages of them, because I love a black letter sticker, especially a foam black letter sticker. They're really great. So I positioned this so that the word kitty would fit underneath the word sleepy, but also so that the P and Y could be over on the side, so that I could put them closer together. And I love combining a bold font with a skinny font, like so something that's got some thickness to it and weight with something that is skinny or more intricate looking. So I really love this combination of letter stickers. Actually, the more I look at it, the more I love it, and the more I want to use these 2 fonts together again sometime. So be on the lookout for that. You might notice me reusing this combo a few times. So I just trimmed up some of the letter stickers so that I could overlap them a little bit so that they look like they are cursive. And now I'm going to be very, very minimal in my embellishment of this layout, because really there is so much going on in the background. I'm trying to decide if I can fit a journaling tag here, but I really don't have much to say about this photo. And so I'm kind of flirting with the idea of just putting a small line of journaling at the very bottom, just a single line. But I'm gonna kind of think about how I might be able to position this journaling tag anyhow, but I don't like it because it's the only place that there would be wood grain, and I don't want to have to add more wood grain someplace else to make that look like it doesn't stand out. And so, of course, right as I went to staple, my stapler was empty. So I'm going to put 2 refills in this one, so I don't have to refill it quite as soon. There we go. And I love how that tab is yellow, and it just happens to fall right where the yellow strip is, the yellow column. And now I'm thinking about adding some enamel dots, but then I think, no, I'm pretty sure I want to use sequins instead of enamel dots, and I'll just like dump little piles of sequins in 3 different places on the layout. So I'm having one last look at my stickers just to see if there's anything that I might want to add, but I'm being very careful to not add very much. So I found these little neutral looking phrases that I really liked, but I couldn't figure out how to put them on, and I was really worried about overdoing it, so I decided against it. So this is a little vial of sequins that I have from a previous kit. Actually, it's from a previous This Life Noted kit from another month, and it has this really nice combination of blues and yellows, and I think oranges or something, but I'm not going to use the oranges. So I'm going to pick out, so I have a little pile of yellow, a little pile of blue, and now I'm going to pick out some red in this one. It's another vial, and I think it's from another Scraptastic kit, I'm pretty sure. Sometimes I separate my sequins out into color, and sometimes I just leave them as color combinations. So see how I'm just like making them be little like it. I want it to look like I just kind of dumped a little assortment of sequins in 3 different places. And so if you dump them, they're not going to all land right on the column, so it's important that I allowed some of them to land outside of the column of color. There we go. Try to keep my fussing to a minimum because, you know, they're just sequins. They're supposed to look random. And I really wanted to go back and get one more of the small red sequins because I wanted it to be an assortment of sizes as well as an assortment of shades of each color. So I'm just using my glossy accents to glue each one of these sequins in place. And I'm gluing them down. They're almost in exactly the same place that they were when I just kind of put them there, right? So other than spreading them out a little bit so that they weren't overlapping, that's about all the designing that I did with this. I forgot to glue one of those yellow sequins down, but I'll catch it at the very end. Forgot that one too. And now here is my tiny little strip of journaling, which says, "In the evenings, Maya loves to sit and lay on my lap." I think I'm thinking a little bit more here about what else I might want to add and deciding, nope, I think we're good. So here you'll get to see a bit of the close-ups, the detailing of the sewing. I did sew horizontally between each paper strip as well. And I think that the sequins were a really great embellishment in this case because I wanted to embellish without changing the overall flow of the layout. I guess flow is the word I'm looking for. And so the sequins just kind of stand out because they're shiny and they catch the light and draw your attention, but they don't really change the overall shape and flow of the layout. So I'm going to put the pin that this layout was inspired by in the information section for this video. It will also be included in the blog post at the Scraptastic Kit Club blog for today. And I will encourage you guys to draw your inspiration from this pin or any other pin and get scrapping this week. Take care, everybody, and have a really great scrappy week.